Hello, good day to me, Andy here, and this is Talking Ready. Fraud, yes, this is quite a big subject to talk about. Today we're going to talk about magistrates fraud. The Magistrates Court are, and I can say this because I have factual evidence of this, they are perpetuating fraud in the court by allowing companies, civil companies, civil trading companies, to claim basically stuff that they should not have. And in particular, this is the warrant they get for a right of entry, 1954. This is a law that says that they can enter your house to look at your electricity or gas supply in times of emergency and for the reasons of safety. Bear in mind that it has zero to do with financial reasons, so this is why this is a fraud, because none of these companies are trading legally. Basically, they're all fraudulent. Now, without going too in depth, I want to talk about the magistrates because I've uncovered in my investigations that, in my case, there are systemic problems, and I am addressing it by going direct to the HM Courts Department. This is the government. Now, if I didn't have evidence, then I would say, why am I doing that? Because I'm putting myself at risk. So clearly, to be able to go to the HM Court's Complaints Department and complain about a court, then I would have to provide evidence of that. Because they're not going to accept some Joe Public just claiming that they're fraudulent. They would need to see evidence of that. And much like the law itself, obviously, law is based upon evidence. So, it's okay saying somebody has stolen something. If there's no evidence of that, then the law does not apply. Now, it's been very subtle, this over the last, well, I'm 60 years old, so it's got to be at least that length of time. However, it was Maggie Thatcher who sold off all of our supplies, our utilities, to the private sector and instigated this fraud. It's a fraudulent system they're using. Now I can show you the alleged warrant, and if you examine it carefully, you'll see two things. One, the name of the applicant. Right, this is the company. They're called Seeker. They are a revenue protection agency. They have nothing to do with energy. They are not listed on Companies House as being a supplier, which obviously is fraudulent anyway, because there are no suppliers, only the National Grid. But anyway, let's wash over that. Let's ignore that for the moment. They are not in any way related to energy, yet the warrant is in their name. Obviously, if you talk to them, they will say, well, we're representing OVO. And OVO, in fact, OVO are not a supplier either. Why do I say that? Well, they're not, because it's already been proven they don't supply anything, only bills. And that is actually factual. It's not made up. The other problem with all of this is if they were a supplier, but they're not. So let's assume that they are passing the buck, all right? So they can claim, and they do claim, that OVO have given them permission. Well, they would need a deemed contract, obviously, but besides that, let's wash over that too. Let's assume, right? But bear in mind that the law, and we're talking about law, and it has to be factual. There is a Right of Entry Act, which is 1954. in that it says only operators, that's energy operators, can apply for a right of entry on the grounds of safety. They're the only people that can do that. And neither OVO nor Seeker are energy operators. I'll give you a little clue. Who is a energy operator? It starts with the word national, ends with grid. National Grid. Right? The National Grid have several companies that do work for them, and one of those in my area is Scottish and Southern. So Scottish and Southern are classed as a energy operator because they obviously deal with the actual basic idea. They are responsible for the infrastructure all the way up to your house and up to your meter. So basically from the meter's mine, so I own that, that's my responsibility, and then obviously from there it goes to the house. But up to that point is the responsibility of National Grid / Scottish and Southern, SSE. Right, so they are operators. Seeker, obviously our revenue collection, and OVO, even if we bend the idea that they are a supplier is not an operator. All right, supplier supplies, energy operator controls. So first things first, the warrant says Seeker. They cannot apply for a warrant. They're not an energy operator. That's number one. Number two, if you look at the text of the application, you'll see that if you read it carefully, you'll see that it's fishing. It's a fishing expedition. It doesn't say that there is a safety issue. It doesn't provide any evidence that there's a safety issue. And bear in mind that that is the only reason that they could apply for a warrant. There's a health and safety issue. They've got no proof. Plus, the text of it, right? The text of the warrant that I had against my house, remember, it's not against me. We'll come on to that in a moment. But it's not against me, the person, Andrew Wright. Right? It says that they can disconnect. Now, I had it from a solicitor who works for the court, this is Peterborough Court, categorically telling me that they will not disconnect houses that are occupied, i.e. have people living in them. So it would have to be unoccupied, i.e. nobody living here, and only then they would get a warrant for it, and it would specify disconnection. Now, even worse than that, they will not disconnect anybody that's elderly, disabled, or health issues, and clearly that is their own regulations. These so-called energy companies, that is their own legislation. That is their own rules. They will not cut off anybody with health issues or disablement. That is exactly what they did. Yeah, they left the house disconnected. After stealing my meter, of course, and putting their own in. And what was even worse than that, on the grounds of safety, obviously the warrant that you can see here is the warrant for my place. This is another warrant that was issued by Birmingham Magistrates. And it's a company called Haste. Now, Haste are obviously operating in the same way that Seeker does. Haste are not an energy company. They're not an energy operator. This is fraud. It's fraudulent application that the magistrate has allowed and approved. In fact, on the Birmingham warrant, there are two magistrates. If they are actually real, I don't know if they're real, because obviously these companies, they hire a room in the court and they go in there with their list of names. In fact, Birmingham Magistrate Court sent me an email and they said that they don't get any names. All they get is addresses. And talking of names, it's the occupier. Okay, we're back onto that old chestnut. The occupier, I am not the occupier. The occupier is a fiction. It's a fictional entity. If you think about it, the occupier is a bit like John Doe. You remember John Doe when a body's found and the police are saying they don't know who it is? It's called John Doe. That's exactly the same way that the occupier is for your house. They don't know who it is. So I don't see, and I've yet to find a legal reference to this, but everybody I speak to said it's not true. It's basically, it's a fiction. But I would like to see it in writing. I would like to see it, and I've got several legal people out there who I've asked the question of. I want to know for sure the status of the occupier, because if you look it up on the dictionary, you'll find the occupier definition comes out very much a bit like, a bit vague. So what they're saying is the occupier is in control of a piece of land, such as a tenant. How does that relate to me? Because that's not my name. I'm not a tenant, although I do hire. Hire, like rent. That doesn't make. How can they correlate an unknown entity and go to court with it? Now, if you look up the word occupier in a dictionary, you'll see that it's a noun. It's someone who lives or works in a particular room, building, or someone who is using it. All right. So the envelope was addressed to the occupier. Someone. Now, if you look up someone, I know it's getting a bit complicated, but if you do look up the word someone, you'll see that it's a pronoun and it's used to refer to a single person when you do not know who they are or when it is not important who they are. So clearly, someone and the occupier referring to a fictional entity because they don't know who it is. So how can you have a contract with someone you don't know who it is, you don't know who they are, and also how can you go to court? Because a court is about having one-to-one with a person, a real human being, i.e. in the idea that they are, going to be, you can't put someone who is unknown in prison because you don't know who they are. So who are they? It's a random person. Yeah, I know it's getting very complicated in language, but clearly they're using this fraud, and the warrant is addressed the defendant, which is the occupier. They're using this loophole in the law, I suspect, in order to get a fishing expedition so that they can come in, open up the cupboard, go inside and do whatever they like. And literally the warrant says they can do whatever they like. They can remove meters, they can put meters in, they can disconnect, and in disregard to any particular idea that A, you don't have a contract with them, so they have technically no right even to come in, and 2, the equipment in there is yours, paid for, so again they have technically no right to remove it. And if they do remove it, I did find out the other day that this is illegal, because unless it's for safety reasons and they're going to take it away to test it, if they just keep it, then there are processes that they need to go through in order to do that. I understand they have to put it into a sealed bag, a sealed plastic bag, to safeguard the equipment, because if they just carry it, which they do, they don't bother, they just carry it round, then that is considered theft. And that is exactly what happened with my meter. They stole it. And even on the video, they even said, if he wants this thing back, then he can contact OVO. I'm not going to contact OVO because I've got no contract with them, and I'm not going to contact them because they won't give it back anyway, because they've stolen it. So there we go. And of course, the court itself, so you make a complaint to the court, and basically they will ignore you, because obviously they. The idea here is I had a solicitor reply, and his statement was, it's been going on for years. My answer to that was, it may well be going on for years, but it's about time it stopped, because it's illegal. It's like fraud. Come on, guy. You're supposed to be trained in legal in the law. You're supposed to be trained in that, and you're saying, oh, it's been going on for years. It's about time you stopped it, because it's fraud. So that is it. And currently we have a complaint, not only to the court, we have it to the actual government HM Court's website as well. Now, just to prove that there is no warrant at the court for me as a human being, my name, you can have a look at this. This is a request I did, and they did a search for my name and my date of birth at the court, and as it says there, there is no warrant. So clearly, me as a person living here has no warrant. It must be, oh wait, it's for my fiction. It's a fictional character called the Occupier, which is not me, because they don't know who it is. It's someone else. It's someone they don't know. So that is the state of play with Magistrates Court. Obviously, trying to prove this fraud and get anybody to listen is going to be a challenge. The next step, possibly, is now I have the magistrate's name, which is Giles Greenfield, and I'm going to get the court manager name. Both of those are liable for private prosecution. You may well say, how do you do that? Well, that's another story. It is easy to do, and it can be done. Maybe I'll do another video about that, but clearly I am doing this for everybody who is in the same situation as me. They've had this warrant issued for a fictional character, and they've been bullied into having their meter stolen, when quite literally it's perfectly legal to have a meter, and especially when you have already got a safety certificate, which obviously they ignored. Because if it was a warrant for safety, there can't be any problem, because there's a safety certificate. So that means, really, that says that whatever they do after that point, which means that they are stealing and breaking and entering, clearly it's a criminal offence, and goes against the warrant. Because if there isn't a safety issue, then the warrant is null and void. I hope I've sort of explained that fairly well, and it's probably pretty boring to some of you. But it comes down to not being bullied by corporations. Not being bullied or afraid to stand up for your rights. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And I know that I'm right on this, because I have done my research. I have got several people who are more knowledgeable than me and legally trained, who know what they're on about. So it isn't a case of me making this up. It's actually factually true that all of this stuff is going on. Right, that's it then. Have a very good day. I'll catch you next video. Bye for now.